There's going to be some talk on the program today about pheasants. Now, I don't want you to panic. For one thing, it's not a cooking thing. Also, it's not going to be about the anatomy of a pheasant. I've been getting carried away with the anatomy, mostly dog anatomy. Last week I got on to dog anatomy again. It was a bit much. I know, it's getting a bit much. I'll tell you what I'll do. Because I keep inadvertently getting back onto dog anatomy, what I'll do this week is completely forgo the whole dog segment. I won't do a segment that begins once upon a time there was a dog, etc. And this dog, he was walking along the street one day minding his own business, etc., etc. For new listeners, I regularly start a segment that way, and it gets on to something else usually. An unfortunate side effect of that method is that I frequently get on to dog anatomy. That's the whole stream of consciousness thing. It's not intentional. I'm not really obsessed with dog anatomy. It's just that when I do that dog thing, it seems to lead me down to dog anatomy a lot. The structure of a dog's anatomy, all that sort of thing. So no, I won't do a dog segment this week. That'll guarantee us a break from the dog anatomy thing. Because I agree, it's been getting a bit much. I won't even do a two cats walk into a bar thing. I'll try and have all original content this week. Nothing I haven't spoken about before ever. Like, for example, what have I not spoken about before ever? Well, on this program. I can't guarantee that I haven't spoken about it in real life outside of this program. I've been on this planet for half a century. Even though I don't speak very much in real life, there's plenty of topics I've talked to myself about or thought about so much that it might as well have been a conversation or a monologue, because I'll be listening to some podcast about some topic or some audio book about some topic that can go on for 20 hours. So I've as good as thought about that subject and thunk about it. So that's as good as having talked about it. But not on the... Oh, that's a load of bollocks. Scratch that. That's nonsense drivel shit. Nonsense drivel shit. That's what that is. That phrase... What did I say? Nonsense drivel shit. Yeah, nonsense drivel shit. I know it's not really a phrase. It's just a sequence of words that I happen to say. Nonsense drivel shit. It reminds me of Murder, Death, Kill. And that's in that movie. I think it's Demolition Man. There's a movie set in a futuristic hellhole city in a shitty future. And there's a thing called a Murder, Death, Kill. If you look up Murder, Death, Kill, do it in private mode. Go into private mode in your browser and look up Murder, Death, Kill. It's the name of a type of criminal charge. See, that's the stream of consciousness element of this program. There I was just innocently talking about whatever I was talking about. I don't even remember. And I go to Murder, Death, Kill. Just because I said, what did I say? Nonsense, bullshit, something or other. Nonsense, drivel, bullshit, something like that. And that went to Murder, Death, Kill, which is a real thing from a movie. Actually, a legal concept called Murder, Death, Kill. Now, I know murder is a legal concept the world over. There's different meanings in different places, but almost all of them, it means killed someone intentionally who you're not supposed to be killing intentionally. It's not your job to kill them, and you're not authorized to kill them. You can't be going around killing people intentionally. It's a problem, and it's called murder. And it's a very bad thing. They put you in jail for that, or they fry you. Some of these people, whatever way they ends up, they turn out to be murderers, but they don't get convicted or found out as murderers until they're dead. And then you can't do a posthumous imprisonment of them, can you? You can put a hold on proceedings regarding their estate, I suppose, but that doesn't hurt them. I suppose you can sentence them to having their grave fenced off, have hoardings put around it for 25 years or something. The last thing you want when you put a grave and you put flowers on it and a headstone and you put a big sculpture on it, the last thing you want is that being turned into a shrine. No. At least not if you turn out to be a murderer. If you turn out to be a scumbag, you don't want to be. Well, maybe you do, but it's about what society wants. You're a scumbag murderer. We don't care what you want. We want what society wants. So society, what does society want? There's 4.5 million people in this society. Some of them want endless cups of tea. Some people want a car. Some people want the meaning of life delivered to them on a plate. And if you give them the meaning of life delivered to them on a plate, how would you do that? You wouldn't do it with spaghetti letters or something like that, no. Unless it's a child. Someone wants the meaning of life to them delivered on a plate. How would you do that? Suppose you get a paper plate and print that on it. Why would you do that though? Would you not just print it on normal paper? Well, if it's a paper plate, maybe that is normal paper. Who's to say what's normal paper and what isn't? It might not be normal printing paper or normal writing paper, but it might be normal paper. Just because you can't write on it, that doesn't mean it's not normal paper. And just because you can't eat off it, that doesn't mean it's not normal paper. Who's to say what's normal paper and what isn't? There's a pile of paper here that's designed for printing on. You would probably say that's normal paper. I wouldn't. There's also a refill pad under here in a shelf here for writing on that students use to write notes on. You might think that's normal writing paper. Who's to say it is or it isn't? It's a scrunched up bit of paper in this bin probably. It's probably used to wipe up some spilled coffee. A napkin, in other words. There isn't anything in the bin because I don't really use the bin in here. Well, let's say there's a napkin in there. Who's to say that's not normal paper? That could be normal paper. Toilet roll could be normal paper. What's abnormal about toilet roll? Unless you're some naturist who thinks we should all be using duck leaves on our arses. No, that's elitist. If you put duck leaves down a normal toilet in a mature housing estate like this, the sewer pipes are starting to crumble or getting blocked up. You can't be putting duck leaves down the toilet. We had problems in here a few weeks ago. There was a blocked sewage pipe. Now, I wasn't putting duck leaves or any kind of leaves down there. I was just putting toilet paper, possibly excessively. But excuse me for wanting to be clean. I have smelly feet at the moment. I won't be losing leaves on those, I can tell you. I might have a shower or something. How do you manage feet in a shower? Do you wash your feet in the shower? I'm a reasonably clean person. I'll have a shower, I'll wash myself. And then a few days later, I'll find my feet are smelly. Now, usually when that happens, I consider that an emergency and I go somewhere and I wash my feet or clean my feet. I wipe them or clean them or something. I consider that an emergency, kind of consideration to those with whom I share my life. But if I'm in the shower, I don't pay much attention to my feet. I'm afraid to. But if you're in the shower, you lift up one of your feet to pay attention to it. You're probably going to be fine because whatever your strongest foot is, you lift up the other foot and you stay standing on your strong foot. So if you're right-footed, you'll pick up your left foot first and you'll wash that. Sometimes they go, oh, I think I'll pay some extra attention to my feet. If you're nimble enough, you might turn the sole of your foot slightly up towards the water. You might sponge it down a bit, put some extra soap on it, whatever you do, wash that foot. But danger comes when you finish that foot, you put it back down on the floor of the bath or the shower, whatever you're having your shower in. Maybe you're one of these snobs. Your bath is separate from your shower, so you're in an actual shower tray thing. You put that back down and then you think, I better do the other foot. And that's when the problem comes in, because the other foot is your strong foot. You lift that up and then you fall over and you break your neck, all because you wanted to have clean feet. Don't be ashamed if you've had a shower a couple of days ago and you find unexpectedly you've a foot holder problem. That just means you were safe in the shower. You didn't go doing anything excessively dangerous involving acrobats and putting yourself at risk. No, your safety comes first. Now you might say hygiene is a safety issue. I suppose that's true. Ignore all that then, sorry. I'm just trying to help. I have a lifetime of experience of showering and having smelly feet, all that sort of thing. I know, you know best. You know best, aren't you great? Good for you, you're great. Aren't you great? I don't mean that sarcastically. Aren't you great? You are. You've got it all together. You've got your life together. You have these showers or baths. You probably have baths, do you? That's probably what you probably have a bath every night. No matter how busy you are, you draw a bath, as they used to say. That's what they used to call it. They call it drawing a bath. You turn the taps on in your bath, and you're so confident that you have everything together that you'll turn on the taps on your bath, and then you go and do something else in another room in your home. Confident that you won't forget about it and come back and find it all overflowing into your house. Aren't you great? Aren't you great? Well done. You've got all your shit together. You've got all your Not your eggs in your basket. What's that called? All your ducks in a row. You have all your ducks in a row. You have rubber ducks in your bath. You've checked their proper flotation. You didn't get them off some cheap, shitty site on the internet. No, you probably researched your ducks thing. You probably read the reviews on Amazon. You said, which of these rubber ducks, do they float properly? Does their flotation change depending on how deep the water is? And it's just occurred to me, maybe the purpose of these rubber ducks, because they're all bright yellow, aren't they? Maybe the purpose of these rubber ducks is so that if you accidentally leave the bath running and it overflows and you're in another part of the house, you'll see these ducks coming across the floor on the small puddle towards you across the kitchen floor. And you think, oh Christ, the bath's overflowing. You'll see that. That would actually help me because I'm vision impaired. I'd be more likely to see a bright yellow rubber duck coming across the kitchen tiles or the hall tiles. Hopefully it won't reach the carpeted sitting room. If it was coming from the bathroom, then if I see the rubber ducks coming across the floor on a slightly damp tiled floor, that's still time to save the day. And now that I think about it, that would help me. That would be helpful. So no, nothing cynical here. It's all good. We've solved the problem there, haven't we? We've solved the problem there with the rubber ducks. I do find bright yellow things helpful. I find bright luminous orange things extra helpful for some reason. You get things like tape. Orange luminous tape is particularly helpful, especially, strangely enough, duct tape. Into your head, into your head, into your head, into your head, into your head. If you're listening to this from inside a wheelie bin, perhaps you're homeless. Perhaps you consider the wheelie bin to be your home. In which case you're mistaken, but I suppose you're entitled to think of it whatever way you want. When I grew up, there was a television program, Bosco. I think Bosco was probably something to do with the Irish word for box, which is why it sounds slightly different to box. Bosco, B-O-S-C-O. There was no X. I don't know if there's even any X's in our native language, but this program was mostly in English, where it's for preschool children. And a puppet who supposedly lived in a box, but the box was on a table in a studio. There were humans coming to visit every day. It was a well-lit studio as well. If you're homeless, you're living in a box on a table in a particularly well-heated studio, are you really homeless? How I know if you're sleeping in your workplace? I suppose technically you are homeless. Well, there's workplaces and there's workplaces. It's not like Bosco was spending his nights watching television in the back of a fast food freezer or something. No, it's in a well-heated, taxpayer-funded studio. In hindsight, in fairness, now that I'm not 5 years of age, I understand that they made a few hundred episodes of Bosco and just repeated them ad nauseum for 2 or 3 decades. So for much of the last few years of that program, while we were all enjoying it, the people involved in it were unemployed. In fact, I understand one of them was dead, tragically. If I checked back in another 50 years, they'll all have died. And that'll be slightly less tragic. Hopefully, they'll have lived maybe another 49 years. And then when I check 50 years from now, they'll all be dead. But it won't be in a tragic death way. No, I understand one of them died tragically. They didn't talk about that on the program. There was no moment where Big Bird went around asking, what is death? Where is Mr. Hooper? Can we get an award for this episode? No. In fact, I don't know if the program was still even being produced when that happened. In fact, I'm talking a lot about stuff I don't know. So let's go back to stuff I do know. I do know that there was a thing called Bosco. It was a puppet who looked like a doll with stupid red hair and round painted cheeks on his face, supposedly lived in this box. For most of the program, the box was open. You'd see the puppet from the waist up, and the box was clearly just there to hide someone's hand. Or occasionally, you'd be showing somehow the inside of this box, a little apartment inside. So if you're listening to this in a wheelie bin, it's probably not like that. Maybe you're from my age group when you grew up on Bosco and you think, well, Bosco's box was maybe 2 or 3 feet by 2 or 3 feet, a cube box. And there's this wheelie bin I see here that's about 10 times the size of Bosco's box, so surely I can set up some sort of temporary home in here. Well, unfortunately, you're mistaken. One thing I did manage to perceive as an ignorant child was that Bosco's box, small as it was, and miraculous as it was that Bosco could have some sort of little apartment inside there, it was obvious to me as a child that that box was sitting on a kind of table, except the table was clearly hollow. So Bosco could easily have gone down into that box and then had his apartment in that huge box that was being used as a table. It wasn't a Doctor Who TARDIS situation, no. It was all cheating. There was a box underneath that, and that's where Bosco's little apartment was. Also, he was a puppet. Now, this puppet, I understand, still tours. The family used to have a puppet theatre that apparently either burned down or had some issue a few years ago. Arguably, that puppet theatre is more homeless than Bosco. Bosco was operated by a family member who I understand it was kind of separate from the theatre somewhat and always toured like some sort of homeless thing. But the rest of the family had this puppet theatre in Dublin until a few years ago. That burned down. So I don't know where they all live now. Do they live in a box? Well, maybe they just live wherever they lived before and this puppet theatre was just their workplace. If your office burns down, it doesn't mean you don't have somewhere to sleep, no, unless you're living in the office. I've just noticed my feet are smelly. That's not really an issue you need to worry about, I know, but my feet are smelly today. And that's an issue for me because I have to smell it. And what I should have done if I thought of this before I sat down, I could have gone over there and got some deodorant and sprayed it on my socks. But no, I didn't do that. So hopefully I can keep my feet as far away from my face as possible. At the moment I have my feet extended on a little footstool and they're quite a bit far away. But if I have to rearrange myself at some point, it may come an issue again. I don't know. Anyway, did I deal with the Bosco issue? What is the Bosco issue? Well, it's not really an issue, is it? No. The other problem with this wheelie bin plan of yours, unfortunately, you're being miseducated by so-called public service television. Unfortunately, you're being misled or not fully educated by this because while the wheelie bin you're living in is indeed much bigger in terms of volume than Bosco's box, which is maybe 3 or 4 feet by 3 or 4 feet, if that, your wheelie bin is tall, it's not wide. The floor area is not much bigger than Bosco's box, in fact, possibly less than Bosco's box. If you want to get any more floor space out of that wheelie bin, you're going to have to make it a 3 or 4 story home. And to make it even more difficult, entrance to a wheelie bin is through the roof, the top of the wheelie bin. That's going to be your front door. Every time you open it, if it's raining, there's water getting in and it's getting right down to the basement and there's no way for it to escape unless you make a hole in the bottom of that wheelie bin as some sort of drain. And that's not ideal, is it? Although you're going to need a hole for the air anyway. Big plastic wheelie bin, you're going to need air holes in that. And those lids on those wheelie bins, they're designed to open easily. Goes up onto the back of the bin truck, onto that elevator thing, and it goes up and up and up, and then it tilts over. The lid of the wheelie bin is designed to just open with gravity. So it's not very secure at all. There's not going to be rain getting into that. There's going to be some air getting into that, and that's something. You want that, but you also don't want the temperature of that air. It'll be absolutely freezing in there. I suppose it's better than nothing. But more importantly, you're going to need 4 or 5 levels in that wheelie bin to get enough floor space for it to be worth it. Unless you put it on its side, I suppose. Maybe that could work. Put the wheelie bin flat on the ground, on its side, on its front, or on its back, or whatever you call it. I'd say on its front, because then you could lift up the lid like a flap and step underneath it. Suppose there's that. It's still not ideal, is it? No. There are bigger wheelie bins you can get. I used to have a very big wheelie bin before we moved here. We had proper big, decent-sized wheelie bins and at a competitive rate, I can tell you. The one good thing, well, there's one of 2 good things about living in a Thai. There was a wheelie bin service that wasn't very reliable, but it was cheaper than most. There was also very low mortgage payments, relatively. Apart from that, You have a wheelie bin there that you're going to live in as your temporary home. How are you going to put levels into that? You're not. If you are going to do that, if you find some way to have a stairs or something, maybe you spend most of your day in the top level, that will be the living space. And then when you want to go to the bathroom, you lift up that floor and you go into the next space down underneath that. And you have your bed at the very bottom of the wheelie bin. When you settle down for the night, you lift up 2 or 3 floors and get down there. It's not big enough for any of that, is it? No. Even with the extra floor space from installing extra levels in that wheelie bin, you can't live in there. No, you're being ridiculous trying to live in a wheelie bin. But it's not your fault. Public service television showed Bosco living in this magical apartment inside this box. It was completely unrealistic. And how was he lighting that anyway? I know the studio was very well lit, but when they showed the inside of the box, the ceiling is a lid that opens. For most of the show, we were looking at the box, so you could see the inside of the lid had no ceiling light on it. Where was the lighting in there supposed to be? Ireland of the 70s and 80s. People didn't have fancy lighting setups in their home. Every room had a ceiling light right in the middle. You had a bulb right in the middle. If you were fancy, you got a light shade and you put that on it. An old style light bulb as well, by the way. There's no energy saving going on there. No, it was an energy using light bulb. We unashamedly used energy to light our homes and we paid for it. How did we pay for it? I don't know. I wasn't really born or active in the world of bill paying anyway. I feel like I've wasted your time talking about this idea of adding extra floors. I thought I was having an ingenious idea there, adding extra levels to your wheelie bin. It misled myself because I wasn't even thinking about how much floor space there is on each floor. Certainly not enough for a living room or a bed of any kind. If you're going to be sleeping upright in that wheelie bin, which is the only way you're going to be doing it, or at least folding yourself in half at the waist, if you're limber or nimble, wherever the word is, limber or nimble, perhaps you're a cat. If you fold yourself in half, maybe you can sleep in the wheelie bin. Be just enough height. But then you can't have the floors, or you can have the floors, but there has to be a hole in each floor to make room for you to be standing in. Be like a stairwell, but with no room for stairs. So you need a stairwell, maybe that's your setup. You're not going to be able to put stairs in there, but you do need a stairwell just for your head height space. Stairwells are great for that sort of thing. If there's not enough headroom at some level, there's always enough headroom as long as there's a stairwell that goes all the way up through the building. There's always enough headspace there. There's this movie, Being John Malkovich. There's a floor in that office building where the ceiling is only 4 or 5 foot high. Even there, if you go out to the stairwell in that office, even at that level, you go into the stairwell, straight away you'll find you can stand up straight, you won't have to bend over. Because in a stairwell that goes all the way up through the building, you don't have to worry about ceiling height because there's no ceilings on the stairwell except at the very top where the roof is. So don't discount the value of stairwells in that way. You don't even need the stairs for that to be the case. Just an empty stairwell. Now, if your wheelie bin were much bigger, having a stairwell would be a remedy for the issue in your wheelie bin. But it's not really practical, is it? No. Kind of feels like I'm making fun of you, really, in your wheelie bin. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be one of those podcasts where they make fun of homeless people. That's horrible. Homeless people deserve help and support and sympathy. Not some fella talking about wheelie bins and Being John Malkovich. I don't know if you've ever seen Being John Malkovich. There's no reason I would know whether you've seen it. It's quite an interesting movie. There's this fella. He goes to work in this normal office building with one floor where there's a low rent arrangement or something. The ceilings are very low. And he finds some hole in the wall and you go through it. You find yourself inside John Malkovich's mind for about 15 minutes and you have the experience of being John Malkovich. That's where they get the title of the movie. You get the experience of what it's like to be John Malkovich because you're in John Malkovich's mind somehow for 15 minutes. And then at the end of your visit, you're unceremoniously dumped out of John Malkovich's mind onto some median or embankment at the side of some highway, and someone has to come and collect you. John Malkovich is not aware that this is happening. He finds out it's happening somehow. And spoiler alert, eventually John Malkovich finds out about this and he goes to that office and he goes into that hole in the wall. He goes for a visit into himself. It's not really about being John Malkovich. If they wanted to make a movie about being John Malkovich, they could have made a documentary. I wonder, are there any documentaries about being John Malkovich? I'm not sure. There's that Pope thing. There was a thing called The Young Pope. And then the second season was called The New Pope. In the second season, John Malkovich becomes the Pope. The fellow who's Pope in the first season ends up in a coma for several months. The original Pope there, the young Pope, I forget his name. But to me, I always thought he was a bit like Kevin Spacey. He could easily have taken over that part from which Kevin Spacey was flushed out of in House of Cards. Kevin Spacey was playing the president and then he was cancelled and suddenly killed off for the last season. They could have got your man out of the young Pope to replace him, I thought. He had the no hair thing going on and he had the kind of arsehole thing. People are replaceable if you just go and look for the person to do it. And what's that fella called? I suppose I better tell you his name. Jude Law's his name. Apparently he's well known. You probably know him. You probably do. My wife knew who he was. I said, oh, there's this Pope thing. This fella on it. He's very good. I think his name is, it says Jude Law. She says, oh, that's interesting. He's the last person I'd imagine being a Pope. He's also the last person you'd imagine replacing Kevin Spacey in that. Except for me, he's the first person I'd imagine replacing Kevin Spacey in that. They didn't even try. They just said, oh, we'll kill him off. He'll die off camera. I suppose that is somewhat realistic. The vast majority of us in this world die off camera. They're very rarely filmed dying unless on a security camera, or perhaps you're in intensive care and there's some intense monitoring going on. You're probably not being watched on camera there, though. They're watching your vitals on a screen, but they're probably not watching a video of you dying. It's not the Truman Show. No, it's a medical treatment. People claim to be all offended at it being a surveillance state. Everyone's filming you. Everyone's watching you. Everything's Big Brother. You'll cheerfully put a thing in your child's bedroom, your infant child. You put a thing in there. Not only makes a sound, you have video on these things now. You decided, I'm going to put a camera on this child and have an app so it can be accessed by anyone who has the password. And you look this thing up on the app and it says, oh, your child cried or moved or something. Here's a live stream of it. Do you want us to put this on the television? And you say no. It says you can either sign away to TV rights to your child on this monitor, or else you have to have advertising. You have the free version of the app and then there's advertising. So you'll be watching your child and then there'll be an ad break. You come back after the ad break, your child is standing there on the floor of the bedroom looking confused. Everything's missing. There's been a burglar in there. The cot is missing. Someone's probably stolen the light bulb. I don't know if they've stolen the camera. If that happens, do they steal the camera? I don't know. Well, presumably if they're broken in there, they're either not aware of the camera or they're aware of the camera and not worried about it. In which case, if they're not worried about it, they might as well just steal it. If you're not worried about what's happening with this camera watching you breaking in, you might as well steal the camera. Not everyone knows about monitor cameras, wherever you have in there, and they probably think, oh, that's probably not valuable. I think it's probably not. You probably got it on some website. I did that yesterday. I needed a spare remote control, so I went online and I said, Irish thing for buying a spare remote control. And then I bought it, and then I realised it was coming from China. I don't have anything against coming from China, other than the fact that it takes about 3 months to get here. They say, oh, it'll be with you in a few months. Takes a while. It's a long way. That's my only problem with buying stuff from China on the internet. It takes very long time to get here. By the time it gets here, I'll have no need for it. I suppose it's not the end of the world, is it? No, it's not the end of the world. The world is still going. And if someone breaks into your child's bedroom while your child monitor video thing is in commercial break, because you cheaped out and got the free version. That's not the end of the world. They've just stolen everything. Stolen the cot, they've stolen the toys, they've stolen whatever else you have in there. What else do you have in there? Probably have one of those mobiles, do you? Not a mobile phone, one of those mobile things that you put over a child's cot that mesmerises the child as it falls asleep. That sort of thing. That's probably not worth much, is it? What's that called? Is it called a mobile? I think it is. It's like a chandelier, but it's made of paper and shit. Shiny things hanging on it. It's like a Christmas tree, but it's for all year round, and you hang it over your infant child as it's going asleep. That somehow helps. Maybe you have one of those little music things as well that plays lullabies. They're probably not very expensive. Your infant child probably doesn't have any fancy equipment like a tablet in there, unless you're being stupid enough to leave a tablet in there. Because you thought, no, I'm not going to buy one of these mobiles to hang over it. I'm not going to buy a child's melody player. I have apps for that on my iPad that you paid about €3,000 for. And I leave that in there beside the child. So that was stupid of you. It was really, really stupid of you. Thankfully, the child is not harmed at all. It's just sitting there, fascinated, not having a very good sleep because the cot is being stolen. But no harm done, I suppose. No harm done. So that's your man. He'd be great. Jude Law, is it? Yes, Jude Law. That's his name. He was bald. Looks a bit like a slightly younger Kevin Spacey. He looks like Kevin Spacey looked like in that thing. Before we all decided Kevin Spacey was undesirable as a celebrity or something. Whatever happened, he got cancelled. He was in this thing when he was younger that everyone pretended not to like. I forget the exact details, but this fella who believed he was an alien, or claimed to believe he was an alien. That's one of those movies where people come across it and they say, oh, that looks shit, that's shit. They have the same attitude, the same snobbish attitude they have to Edward Scissorhands. I remember about 20 years ago, I was picking up Edward Scissorhands in a video library. And some teenagers started laughing at me just because I looked into the possibility of watching Edward Scissorhands. That was the nightmare of life before streaming services. I thought, oh, Edward Scissorhands, that looks fun. It might be fun. It's the same fella who's in the thing about the sweet factory. That probably hadn't come out yet, had it? No. Now, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, they made a prequel of that, which I watched last Christmas, 3 or 4 months ago. I watched that. I watched 2 movies last Christmas. I watched that. I also watched a movie that I didn't realise I'd seen before, but I had. This jazz musician, he's very passionate about his jazz music, and he's in some school. There's a whole class of jazz musicians who he's training, and he's there yelling at people. This young fellow comes in, the jazz drummer, and your man is there, pushing him to be good at this, but going nuts, yelling at him and screaming at him. And then it emerges that some other fellow who'd been yelled and screamed at by this instructor had killed himself. And that was a barrel of laughs, the movie, and it's called Whiplash, which you're never going to find. You're not going to search for Whiplash when I tell you that there's a thing about this jazz musician kid who goes to music school and there's a bald, tough-looking fella who's a complete bastard. Why are you going to search for that? You're not going to search for Whiplash. Although you might now if I tell you that there is a minor car accident in it. And it's just occurred to me, maybe that's why it's called Whiplash. I don't know, does the kid even get whiplash in it? I don't think he does. Again, spoiler alert. You're looking for movies about whiplash. That might not necessarily be the movie for you. No. Why are you looking for movies about whiplash? You're looking for snuff films. Oh, don't go looking for snuff films. If you do, you're not going to come across this one. Well, you might. You might come across a film called Whiplash, only because you're very bad at searching for snuff films. You'll come across this. You might enjoy it, though. You might enjoy it. If you're somewhat cultured, if you're open to... I suppose, no, do you have to be cultured to watch this? No, but you have to be open to not turning off the television as soon as you see the opening scene involves jazz musicians. No. They're not really jazz musicians anyway. It's just some fella belting away on the drums in a jazz musician training place. This kid is belting away at the drums, nearly kills himself bashing away at the drums. This fella is yelling at him, saying, "No, your beat is slightly off. Your beat." He keeps stopping him, saying, "Your beat is slightly off. Get her right, you cunt." Words to that effect. He gets very angry about it. I like that movie now that I think about it. And I think I did watch it on Christmas Day after watching the prequel to Willy Wonka. I started watching it. Oh, wait, I've seen this before, and I had seen this before at Christmas. No adult has any business looking for or watching movies at any time other than Christmas. You've no business watching movies. You're not a child. You don't go to the sweet shop every 5 minutes just to watch a streaming series. Follow 2 or 3 of them. So you have 2 or 3 episodes a week to watch of different things. Just watch them. Have a proper diet of streaming episodes. Don't gorge on them like I do. I can gorge on them. I don't have to go into some workplace tomorrow morning, bleary-eyed from having watched TV all night. No, I'm rewatching 6 Feet Under at the moment. It's very good. It's about all these people dying. A family who run a funeral home and have all sorts of stuff happen to them. I recommend that as well. It's very good.
Into Your Head.
They never made an afterquel to Willy Wonka, despite there being a book on which it could be based. There's a book called Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. Now, I haven't read that since I was a child. I don't know if there's enough content in it for a movie. Charlie and Willy Wonka go up in the glass elevator that goes right up into the sky above the earth. People get mad about elevator music. So if you made a film about a kid and an old man in a great glass elevator, and it's a sequel, everything's being resolved, the kid owns the factory now, what else could happen? There's no peril or anything. At least I presume there's not. I can't remember. What I do remember now, because I looked it up a few weeks ago, was this other Roald Dahl book, Danny the Champion of the World. Now, my father gave me this for my birthday when I was 8 or 9, I think. I remember reading it at the time and being quite shocked, thinking it was the most grown-up book I've ever read. It's involved this kid and his father, this fella who owns the forest nearby or something, and there's pheasants. The culmination involves the kid and his father poisoning all of the pheasants in the whole hunting area with sleeping pills to get revenge on some fella who's mean to them. That's Danny the Champion of the World. Now, for some reason, this was apparently based on a short story that Roald Dahl had written for adults before that. I decided this would be suitable for children, and then my father thought this would be suitable, which it was, for me as a birthday present. I think that was the first proper long book I ever read, now that I think about it. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, I don't know. It's certainly the first book I had that had actual proper grown-up themes, like poisoning pheasants with sleeping pills to stop a hunting party from being successful. The pheasants all survived except one, incidentally, and if I remember rightly from when I read the plot a few weeks ago, in quite some horror, I don't mind saying, I reread the plot of this book that I did read as a child. At least one of the pheasants end up dead from an overdose from these sleeping pills. The kid and his father have put sleeping pills into all of these pheasants so that they won't be around when the hunting party comes. The fella who's running the hunting party, they want him to be embarrassed when all his friends come over to hunt these pheasants. But some of the pheasants die from an overdose. So this child's book that your hero Roald Dahl wrote in his garden shed is a horror tale of these pheasants getting murdered. That's just considered collateral damage.
Are you going into your head?
There's these things for cleaning windows. You have 2 of them. You put one on the inside of the glass, and then you open up the window and you put the other one on the outside of the glass, and there's a magnet. You move the sponge thing with the handle around the inside of the glass to watch the inside of the window. And while you're doing that, the magnet causes the corresponding sponge thing on the outside to clean the outside of the window. It's all very well until you suddenly pull back the thing from the glass and the corresponding thing that's on the outside falls down onto someone's head and kills them. And because you're naive, you think, oh, why isn't everyone just using these? Why does the whole industry exist for window cleaning? I'm sure it's just because the whole window cleaning thing is all a con and nobody knows about this catalogue. That's what you probably think. Window cleaners exist for a reason. People who climb ladders for you as a service exist for a reason. Don't go around putting things on magnets, attaching them to the outside glass of your upstairs window. Don't do that. That's just me. For one thing, you can't clean a window properly that way. Everyone knows a window needs to be washed using, ideally, a window wiping utensil blade thing, where the blade is the exact same width as the glass. There's less streaks if you do it in one go. Because if you have streaks on your window, it's a disgrace. People think, oh Christ, that fella has streaks on his window. That's evidence that he's cleaning his window, leaving streaks. That's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. That fella's worse than Hitler. No, you got neighbours who were so careful about washing their windows that they accidentally leave some streaks on the window from the cleaning process. That's a good neighbour. People say the same thing about neighbours who say they don't want it in their own backyard. Would you prefer neighbours who don't care what goes on in their own backyard? Because I can tell you, if you ever have the misfortune to live beside someone who doesn't give a shit what goes on in their own backyard, that's a lot less pleasant than you imagine. You're very naive about some of these things, you young people. No, you don't want someone who doesn't care what goes on in their own backyard. Or back garden, as we call it over here. A yard is what you have in a prison courtyard. You go out in the middle of the day for half an hour and you pace around this yard. Do they have a formal arrangement in these prison yards as to whether you can walk around clockwise or counterclockwise? They probably do. Well, that's cruel if you do. Give them half an hour of the day where you don't control their every movement, for Christ's sake. Have you ever set up like a roundabout? You have lanes set up, just like when you went into shops during COVID. And that was necessary. They had to put things on the floor showing you how far back to stand and stuff like that. Don't put that in the prison yard. They're 1/2 hour of the day where they go out and commune with Mother Nature, insofar as you can commune with Mother Nature in the courtyard in the middle of a prison. I know, give them that much. Let them have their break. Just as you have your break as a law-abiding adult. Even when you're going around your law-abiding day and being productive, you expect a break. If you don't get your break at work, you go nuts. You say, I didn't get my break today. I'm entitled to a 9.5-minute break. I'm entitled to sit down with a cup of coffee and not be spoken to about work for 9.5 minutes. I'm allowed 30 seconds to get back to my desk. And that's not including toilet breaks. Because I'm a respectable, hard-working citizen. If you're in prison, you're entitled to a break from the prison to go into some courtyard and get some fresh air. We're a civilized society. We give our prisoners a break where they go outside. That's their break. But you want that controlled. You want to tell them, no, you can only walk around that way, not that way. You can only face north. You can only walk around counterclockwise. And if you do decide to walk around in a spiral, you have to start in the middle. So that means to get to the middle, you're going to be crossing over everyone else's path to get to the starting point. Obviously, the middle of a spiral, by definition, that's a tiny point in the middle of a circle. So only one person can be starting there at any one time. So there's going to be a queue for the middle of the spiral, for the starting point. And that queue is going to be like a queue for an ATM that stretches across a street. It's blocking all the traffic and the pedestrians. So that's not practical at all. So no, just let them walk around. Walk around, just do whatever you want. Bounce an imaginary ball or something, whatever they do. There's one film I remember. This fellow went out because there was a high security prison. He was only allowed to go out in the courtyard on his own because he was some dangerous killer or something. Wasn't allowed to have a ball or any implements to play with or anything. So he went out into the courtyard straight away. First thing he started doing was bouncing an imaginary ball, and not only bouncing an imaginary ball, jumping with the ball while bouncing it, getting it up into an imaginary basketball loop. Now, who refereed this, I don't know. Of course, there's no way of knowing for sure that he was getting it into the loop, because if the basketball loop is only in his imagination, he don't know where the loop is. It's like one of those spot the ball competitions they used to have in the newspapers for football and soccer. They used to have these spot the ball competitions that show a photo from a recent match. It removed the ball from the picture and you'd have to figure out from the positions of all the players where the ball was. Well, you have this fella, he's playing imaginary basketball in this prison courtyard. Obviously, you're going to see a point where he puts the ball into the imaginary basket, or appears to think he has. Who judges that? He'll claim he's put it into the basket, he's celebrating. Has he really done that, or is he just kind of pretending? No, I put it in there. I don't really know where the basketball is. I haven't really got a particular position for the basketball net in my mind. I just put the ball up there. I decide, oh, that's where the net is. I scored. It's a prison, so obviously there's going to be people who are dishonest about it. But to be fair, he's only lying to himself, unless he's part of some prison imaginary basketball league and there's rules and prizes and things, in which case you want to have some rules governing that, I suppose. Want to have some rules governing that, I suppose.